Okay, so we are starting gut protocol, super exciting. And this is just a little bit of a prep call to just go over everything to make sure that you know exactly where to find everything, that you have any questions or anything like that, that you just want to make sure that you're 100% ready to go so you can really optimize this next month or so. So the first thing I'm going to do is just dive right in so we can keep this shorter and share the screen. So this is what it should look like when you open up into your Beachbody On Demand, right? So technically, if you go back, you start in programs, it should be, because you just purchased it, it should be at the very top of your programs when you log into your Beachbody On Demand. And you just click on the 4-week gut protocol. And that is where we all will start. So this week during prep week, if you're not in our bod group yet, it's called Nourish Your Life. If you're not in that bod group yet on the app, you want to get in there, because we are telling you specifically every single day, watch this video today, watch this next video this day, watch this video. You have a little homework assignment, which again, the videos are really short. One's 7 minutes. This one's 4 minutes. They're not very long. So if you are watching one a day, you're kind of prepping yourself at a nice, even pace. It's not overwhelming. It's not any of that kind of stuff. We don't want this to be overwhelming. We want you to be able to go into this with ease and be really excited, right? So, but if you leave it all up for like one day and you got to cram it all in, it's probably going to add more stress, which one of the things is that we're trying to lower our stress, not heighten our stress. So make sure that you are looking in the bod group that we have running. You all have been invited to it. If for some reason you feel like you haven't, just connect with your coach, but you've all been invited to it. So make sure that you're looking in there daily, because we have a post in there daily that says exactly what your homework is supposed to be, and that which video you should be watching, so that you are prepping yourself and you are getting ready for when we start on Monday. So the basics of start here, you should see these are ones that you've already should have watched, right? And then the lessons are what we're going to be watching the rest of the week. We're going to be learning about the 4 R's, how to add it in, calculating your health, all of this stuff. Again, all short and sweet if we do it in order, the way that we are advising you to throughout the group, right? But again, if you leave it for all one day and try and cram it all in, it can get to the point where it's overwhelming. But everything is really simple and right in there. Now, as far as the resources, I want you to go and see, obviously there's bonus materials, all that kind of great stuff, but resources are where we're going to start out. And the first thing that we're looking at is the program guide, right? So we're just going to look at that together really quick, go through that. I'm not going to read every single thing, but I just want to go over some basics. So we are, like I said, watching the videos throughout the week, little by little, day by day. As we do this, we're going to look at the calorie calculator, so we know exactly what category that we are in, so we can start prepping ourselves. I already have my husband and mine planned out from the tracker wise. I don't have the actual foods planned out yet, but I know that I'm in plan B and he's in plan E. So I know exactly how many veggies I have to have, how many carb A, carb B, all that kind of stuff. So I can start looking at that ahead of time, rather than, again, waiting for like the last minute. So the secret to success, these are huge, right? Okay. So the biggest thing that we want to make sure that we're following these, because if you have done the portion fix before, if you have used that protocol, it's similar to it, but yet very different, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing these things. So here's a couple of the things that we need to focus on, and aim to include at least 30 different plants in your diet each week. Now, when we look at all the different things that are plants, that can be, it's not just the green container. Plants can be the beans that can go into the red container for one of the proteins, the protein, I believe B it is. That can be the fruits and stuff, because that is from a plant. All of those kinds of things, those will all be counted. So initially, I think that 30 different plants in your diet sounds a little intimidating, but if you start actually thinking about it, it's not just greens, it's purples, and it's a lot of your yellows, a lot of your even some of your reds, since we're using some of those beans and that kind of stuff for some of our protein count as well. So that should be a fun challenge for us as we embrace that, to get that variety in. And I'll show you in a few minutes where the resources are as far as for having the food list. You can see there's so many different things to choose from, right? So that's a fun challenge that we'll have. Then limiting coffee to no more than 3 8-ounce cups a week. I don't know about you guys, but that's going to be quite a change for me. So making sure that we're focusing on that, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing that. And again, it's not that coffee is necessarily bad. A lot of times it's the stuff that's added in and everything else. And also just the caffeine in general. We want our bodies to really be optimized and feel as good as how they're naturally meant to feel, instead of, on a bunch of stuff. So you can still have one serving of Energize each day, as well as 1 cup of caffeinated tea. But you see that we don't want to exceed more than a total of 200 milligrams of caffeine a day. So that's the focus, is just staying under that 200 milligrams of caffeine a day. So we want to make sure we do that. Limit red meat to no more than once a week. Add 1 serving of fermented foods at least 3 times a week. I've been hearing a little bit about people questioning, like, well, what the heck does that mean? That's going to be challenging. That's hard. There are, you can get, I think, at pretty much any kind of health food grocery store, you can find fermented foods. I know locally, we have it pretty easy if we live in Orange County. Like, there's a fermentation farm where we live. So I know I'm going to go grab a couple things of kraut and maybe some of those fermented green beans or whatever, fermented veggies, and just have those in with a lunch, part of my lunch, or a snack a couple times a week, probably even more than 3 times a week. But if you're looking for that, there's ways to go about making those on your own as well. But if you think of like kimchi and like those kinds of things, if you have questions about that, that seems to be one of the things that seems to be of the most concern for some people. So we can talk about that too. But if you're prepping it now, that's the key, in figuring that out now before we get started on Monday. So at least 3 times a week, ideally, we're adding in those things. Half your body weight in ounces of water. That's something that we've always talked about. So hopefully you have that dialed in. And if you do struggle with that, now is the time to really be honing that in, because we are going to be trying to get everything moving and make sure water is a huge part of that. Also the fitness program is a huge complement to what we're doing. The 4-week gut protocol goes along with 4 weeks for everybody. And it doesn't mean that you can't do other workouts. I'll say that, because I know some people have asked about that. The one thing I will say is that you don't ideally want to be doing anything at a higher intensity level, because you're trying to connect with your body and feel on a level of how your nutrition is helping you. So if you're constantly breaking it down and feeling sore and all of that kind of stuff, it will be more challenging to be able to recognize those things. So I would say you don't want to be in that 80 to 100% range of where you're like balls to the wall pushing it, right? You'd rather stay in that more moderate range as far as how far you are challenging yourself to the level that you're pushing yourself. It's really good throughout the year to kind of cycle through different programs where you might have a phase or a season that you're like all in, like going crazy hard, like challenging yourself, busting your butt, like intense, high intensity, that kind of thing. But then there also needs to be those times where you have more of like a recovery. You can still doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. You can still be moving your body. You can still be lifting weights, but you're doing so in a more of a recovery mode, which is kind of like what we're coming in with this. There's no impact with it. We're not stressing our adrenals out. We're not bringing more stress onto our body. Again, there can be good stress, but you do through workouts and fitness and that kind of stuff. But you do want to have those phases where you are not in that high stress intensity level, right? And so that this is why this program complements this really well, and why it's recommended to do it at least the first time that you go through this program, right? And then speaking of stress, there's extra tips in the week 2 focus video. And then there's also a PDF that talks about managing stress as well, and some of the things that we can do. So here, what are the 4 R's? We're talking about removing, replacing, and replenishing, and then rebalancing, right? And when you watch the video, you'll go more into that. So I'm not going to really dive deep into that. Some of the things that we're making sure starting day 1 that we are removing these things and not having them for the 4 weeks. Definitely no alcohol, definitely no artificial sweeteners, no corn, and no dairy. Also no gluten, including all gluten containing products. So that means you're going to be needing to read labels, probably make sure that, you know, what things are. I mean, it's easiest to eat just whole foods. Obviously, like a sweet potato, you're like, okay, I know it doesn't have gluten, versus reading through a pasta. I do have a gluten-free pasta that I have, because I know like our family has pasta. We have pasta probably at least once a week. So, you know, if you're willing to read the labels, but the easiest thing to do too is just, you know, whole foods that you know of, you know, rice, things that are as closest to how God made them is going to be the easiest to keep it as least complicated. If you're like, oh my gosh, I have to read all these labels and whatever else. Well, then just make it back as simple as possible, right? And then processed soy. So no soy milk, no processed vegan meats, no soybean oil. That's another thing that gets sneakily added into a lot of things. So just kind of checking obvious, or maybe it's not obvious, but like the minimal, as if you can have as minimum amount of ingredients as possible in the foods that you're eating, that's really important. And so this is going to help you to start to recognize those things. Okay. So alcohol, artificial sweeteners, corn, dairy, gluten, and processed soy. So some other things that can be a little tricky for people's food sensitivities can be eggs. Eggs can be really great, nutrient dense, but for some people they might cause sensitivity. So after we've knocked out all those big ones that cause a lot of the inflammation and everything else, if you're still feeling, because you're going to be tracking and kind of noticing how you feel each day when you wake up and when you go to sleep. If you're still feeling a little funky and a little weird, pay attention to how you're responding to those eggs. And also same thing with nuts and legumes. One of the things that you can do is soak them before consuming to help with digestion too. So that can be something that can add in. So what are we reducing? We're reducing added sugars. So again, sugar is snuck into everything nowadays. There's so many things that have sugar that you'd be like, wait, what? Why does that have sugar in it? Like, I can't even tell you how many times I've looked at like tomato sauce or ketchup or any of those kinds of things where I'm like, why do they put sugar in it? So even some nut butters and like that kind of stuff, there's sugar in them, or seed butters. So no more than 10 grams a day. And you will need to keep track of this, because this will easily add up over 10 grams. You might be surprised, but it happens really fast. So you do want to read nutrition labels. Again, the first week will probably be the most challenging, where you'll need to be the most intentional. And once you kind of have that down, where you know, oh, okay, this has sugar, this doesn't, this is what I can eat, this is what I can't, this is where I'm at, whatever else. Once you get that first week or so in, then you start to have a better idea, and it's not as challenging. But the first week, it's going to be really being intentional, really reading our labels, really making sure of what we're actually consuming, right? So if you do want something sweet, we're going to focus on either maple syrup or honey. And it tells you right here, half a teaspoon. I don't know if you guys have watched through some of the videos yet, but like there's a video about how Autumn makes her matcha latte. And she puts a little bit of honey in there, but it's just, again, she says like maybe a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon. And it goes a long way, right? So, or half teaspoon of honey is equal to 3 grams of sugar. So right there, that's a third almost of our allotted 10 grams for the day. There is sugar in Shakeology for all of us who are drinking Shakeology. Again, it's mostly from fruits and stuff like that. There is a little bit of added just for the flavoring, but it's still there, right? So we have to make sure that we're counting that. If you are taking Recover, whatever, like depending on what you're doing, you might hit your max right there. So you want to look at that ahead of time, because I know that I definitely want to keep drinking my Recover. I know that I definitely want to keep drinking my Shakeology. So if that's capping me out, then I'm capped out, and that's what I'm focusing on. So again, just kind of checking that out before you go into it, so you know ahead of time. Caffeine is allowed, but like it said before, no more than 3 8-ounce cups a week. There is the 1 to 2 tablespoons of unsweetened, like coconut or almond or oat milk. Again, no soy. And you can see that those things in the container count, when you look through the food list, you can see where they're labeled. So you know how to include them. So what we're adding is the fermented foods, naturally fermented foods. And we'll talk about those in the free food list, and the plants, because the plants are really going to help. So the supplements, we'll touch on this really quick. I know, for example, Stacy has already started this past week on the supplements. And so she initially did not have the Optimize and Revitalize, and she really was feeling super bloated from all the veggies and having some issues and stuff. So she purchased those, is adding it back in, making sure, and it's already, you know, it's going to make a huge difference. So that's why, I mean, ideally, that's how we're going about it, is we have these things, because this is going to help optimize, especially with the fact that this is probably way more veggies than what most of us are used to as we go through this. So making sure that, one, we're trying to, everyone's going to be at a different level with this, but as far as our gut health, some of us need repair, right? So some of us need to clean things out. Some of us, like, there's a lot of different things depending on where we're at with our gut health, right? And so the Optimize really helps to support a functional digestive tract. So it helps us to actually absorb nutrients, like get those things, the nutrients that are coming from our vegetables that we're consuming and stuff like that, right? So like Autumn, she said that she was actually malnourished, even though she was eating super clean. If you heard her story, which you should have listened to ideally already, if you heard her story, she was actually diagnosed as malnourished, and that's because she wasn't absorbing, her gut was not absorbing all of the healthy stuff that she was bringing in. So we have that Optimize really helps with that, to really break down those foods and help you to actually absorb and get the benefits from them, right? And then the Revitalize is pre and probiotic blends that really kind of reboots and feeds the friendly bacteria and helps the good stuff to become more active in our gut. And that is it for that. So, oops, we're going to go back to this area. So next thing you can see, calculate your health. So that's exactly where you find out how to know which plan you're in. And then it goes to the container plan. So you can see literally, depending on what you just calculated in your thing, how many containers of each that you need. And it tells you the A. Just one thing to note is the difference. This is different from Portion Fix. The red A and the red B and the yellow A and the yellow B is something new. So we want to make sure that we are noting that, and it's not just thinking the same thing. So going to the food list really quick, you can see again, so there's a PB next to some foods that stand for prebiotic, meaning they're a good source of fuel for your gut bacteria. So dandelion greens, artichokes, leeks, asparagus, right? So look at all these things though too. So if you're looking through here, a lot of times, again, we think, oh, it's super overwhelming. But even freshly made salsa, seaweed, some of the things that you wouldn't think, even like the Power Greens Boost. I mean, that's not supposed to be something that we're having multiple times a day. They want us to have actual real vegetables too. But I know I throw that in my smoothie on a regular basis. So that can count as one of my vegetables. Because I know for me, it was a little overwhelming to think like, holy moly, how many vegetables do I have to have? So really looking through this list, okay, and making sure that you are aware of all the different options. Same thing with the purple. Remember, again, plants are in here too. So we're looking through this and we're saying, okay, we want to get 30 plants a week in. So we want to not eat necessarily the same, like when we have our purple for the day, we're not having maybe raspberries every single day or peaches every single day. We're changing it up and we're having an apple one day and we're having a banana another day and we're having blueberries another day, right? So we're adding to that 30 and we're having variety, because variety is really important to get a number of different nutrients into our system as well. We tend to be creatures of habit. And that's not necessarily bad, but we tend to eat the same stuff all the time, right? So really trying to make sure, that's why we have that goal of hitting that 30 different plants each week. That's why that's important. And you can see too, fermented blueberry. So there are some recipes that we'll touch on as well, where you can ferment things if you don't have a place that you know where you can buy fermented foods, like what we have where I live. Again, so just noting the different containers. And reading through this will be important, because you can see, like, if you'll find coconut yogurt on the blue list. So if you eat, since we're not doing dairy, but maybe you really like to have a yogurt, if you're doing a coconut based yogurt, that's on the blue list. So kind of just recognizing the differences of how they're counted. So again, red container A, like I know I have 2 of each on plan B for what I'm on. So I'll have 2 from this list, and then I'll have 2 from the B list, right, each day. So I know I'll have my Shakeology each day. That's super easy for me. I'll probably have some kind of beans, lentils, or something else, which it can easily throw in for like a dinner or a lunch. Same thing over here. Like this stuff is easy because it's all basic protein stuff. So just checking these out and making sure that you're familiar with them. Again, this is going to be a little bit different from the regular portion fix with the yellows. So we have the container A and the container B. So there's no highly processed foods on here, right? We're looking to really go for whole foods. Like I mentioned before, it's about minimal ingredients. So, I mean, I know for me, when I'm not a huge cook. So one of the things that I'll be doing mostly is probably brown rice and oatmeal, steel cut oats or rolled oats, right? From those yellow containers, because that for me tends to be the easiest. Is that the only thing you can cook? No, but that's what I'll probably use, like oatmeal each morning, or a brown or wild rice at dinner will help make it to be easiest. And then the yellow B, which again, I know for me, I have in my plan B, and again, depending on what plan you're in, it will be different for everybody, but I have 2 of those A's. So that's where I'm living, is probably oatmeal and brown rice. Again, if you are more creative with how you cook and everything else, and you like to try new things, awesome, go for it. I'm really, really simple and don't cook a whole lot. So then the yellow container B, we want to be getting, at least for me, for plan B, at least 1 of these in each day. And there's a lot to go within here. One thing that you should look at is here are, like, if you're adding in unsweetened oat beverage into your Shakeology, that's something that you want to look at, because that counts as yellow container B. So like for me, I would rather eat my 1 yellow container B. So I would probably, instead of using rice milk or oat milk, I would use the coconut or almond, and that would go into my other, I'll show you in a minute, my other containers. So it's kind of thinking of what you normally eat too, and what would you rather have? So I would rather have a sweet potato, or I would rather have banana oat pancakes, or my kombucha that you can only have 3 times a week because it's 0 grams added sugar per serving. That's going to be a huge thing. I know cutting kombucha out for me will be a big deal. So making sure that you're looking at these kinds of things that you might not necessarily be used to and kind of preparing yourself. So that's why I suggest, honestly, like writing out according to what your day would look like and looking, okay, I'm checking off all my boxes for all of my greens, my reds, my purples, my yellows. And what does that look like? If I wrote out a sample day or two, what would I be eating? So you have an idea going in. So you're kind of prepared until you get used to it, right? Because again, these are a little bit different than the regular portion fix. The blue containers, healthy fats. So again, here's the coconut or almond milk yogurt. Again, you'll need to read the labels because you want it to be less than 100 calories and less than 9 grams of fat. So as far as the serving size goes, this is where avocado and most of your nuts come in. Hummus is also in this area. So I know a lot of times we do like snacks, like hummus and veggies or something like that. So something to just check out and make sure that you have in here, right? And then over here, I know Stacy had shared in our bod group a really awesome, I screenshot a really awesome dressing that was really simple that she used. So here's like a dressing. So because a lot of dressings have a lot of added junk in it, sugar and all that kind of stuff too. So just throwing something easy together and having it for the week or the month or however much you make of it in here. Anytime we're doing chia seeds, maybe you're adding some chia seeds or some olives or whatever else. The orange is pretty simple. And then our teaspoons. So again, when we talked about doing the unsweetened milks, depending on what kind they are, this is where your almond milk and coconut milk and cashew milk is going to fall into. So I know for me, I have, I have more teaspoons. So I would probably be using these milks instead of my yellow personally. And so, again, just kind of thinking about those things, how you want to make this work. What do you normally have? What does this look like? And how can you fit it in? Okay. So here's the free foods, which these are the probiotics and stuff too. So the fermented, like the sauerkraut, the kimchi, the miso, the pickled ginger, those kinds of things. Those are going to be those fermented foods, right? So those are free things that you can add in. And then again, here's things of what you're going to focus on with your coffee and tea. Making sure that you're sticking under that 200 milligrams. Water bar, it just talks about how you can make it more fun because I know sometimes we struggle to hit our water in there. But pretty basic stuff that you can, let's see. Okay, treats and substitutions. You guys can look through that if you want to check anything out, a little something extra, Shakeology bases. You definitely want to be taking your measurements. You definitely want to take pictures. You definitely want to be tracking that stuff. One of the things too that will be helpful to track is your bowel movements, how those are, and it talks about those in here as well, stool chart. This will help you evaluate that. So you do want to look through these. No, I'm not talking to you right now. Go and ask Dad. She's like waving at me in the background. So you do want to look through these. It's not TMI. I know everybody always says that, oh, TMI. Like, no, everybody poops, guys. Everybody poops. Okay. And like 70+% of people have some kind of digestive issue. Like, hi, we sold out in less than 24 hours of the Optimize Revitalize. Like clearly, and we projected for 6 weeks. So clearly there's a lot of people that need this, right? That struggle with certain things and want to feel their best. So these are all for you to use. So I would suggest printing these out and having them in a nice little packet. at least, I would do it the whole entire 4 weeks, but at least that first week, especially for your food tracker. And then maybe if you're eating the same things consistently from there on out, maybe you don't need to track it the next couple, but it's going to be wise to print these out, your daily journal pages. Again, these have, again, when you wake up, how was my sleep? How is my mood? How is my energy? Because those are the things day to day that you might not necessarily recognize, but then all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, okay, I have so much more energy today. It wasn't hard to wake up anymore. And if you feel that way after a week, after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, that's a huge difference, right? But we may not necessarily notice it day to day. So again, here's our added grams of sugar that we're tracking, our 30 plants a week. Did we exercise for how long? And then our evening reflection each day too. About our emotions and our mood can be greatly affected from what we're eating and our gut health. And that's one of the things that you don't necessarily think about. But again, bowel movements, going back to that chart that we had. So you're going to be putting that, it says the Bristol stool chart, that's in that resource that we just saw. Digestion, how is that? So like rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 7, how was your digestion? Were you extra bloated? Where was your mood? How do you feel at the end of the day? How did your food make you feel? So those are the things that you definitely want to be. So again, stool chart, daily journal pages, you want to be utilizing all of these. That's why you're prepping now, right? And going to this now. So we're looking through this a little bit each day, ideally. So we're not doing it all at once and getting overwhelmed. And then we have our food trackers, worksheets. Again, it's going back to the container plans, so it can help you stay on track. Vegan food list. If you are a vegan, you can go in there and they will help you adjust. And then the daily tracker, this is just for you if you want to use this and you check off each day to kind of see if you're one of those people who loves a good visual, and you want to see yourself checking off the days, kind of like if you've ever heard of like those 1,000 hours outside for the kids or anything like that. Like it's fun to check things off to know that you're getting closer to your goal. Or if you have like a birthday, one of those rings that you attach together and you count down the days by ripping off a ring until it gets closer to the day. This is like one of those. If you love those visuals, this is one of those good things. And then every week, ideally, you should be taking a photo so you can see that progress over time. I know that nobody likes to take photos. I hear you on that. I would highly, highly recommend you to take them. If you're not sure about how to do that, the easiest thing to do is to put your phone on selfie mode, set it on a timer, and just put it in the windowsill, because you'll have that natural light, and that's the best lighting that you could possibly see. So you can see everything. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to do anything about it, but you ideally want to be in a bathing suit or some booty shorts and a sports bra. So you can see your body. You want to be able to see the changes. If you're wearing a t-shirt and some like workout shorts, it's not going to be as easy to see them. You don't have to show these to anybody but yourself, but you do want to have them and you do want to see them. So all of these resources are really amazing, and you're going to be going through those. Now there's meal plans and recipes. Here's a meal planning toolkit, so you can look through there. There's recipes if you want to get creative. Again, this is going to be up to you how your brain works. Some people love the recipes and they want to use them all. Some people, that's like, ooh, too much. And it's like, they just want to keep things way more simple. I know for me, I like to keep it way more simple. I'm not a huge cook, so I'm going to be writing down basic stuff that I know I can just grab and keep it simple for the first week. And then maybe from there, I'll throw in a rest of like one recipe the next week to try something new or whatever. Again, you have to work with how you know your personality is the most, right? There's recipe videos in here that we'll go through. So like, if you do really like having bread, here's a gluten-free fresh bread thing that you can make. And that talks about different fun things like the lettuce wraps, even like vegan potato cheese soup. Like, who thought you'd be able to have potato cheese soup on something like this, right? So I've heard, again, the fermented blueberries, if you want to ferment your own stuff, and that would be helpful if you don't have access to a lot of fermented foods, this could be an option for you to be able to do that. So there's lots of different things for you really to support you on this journey. So I just wanted to make sure that you noted all of that and you know where it is. One of the things too that I want to point out, let's go back to this really quick. The program guide, there is this right here. I highly, highly recommend on day one, on your start day, click this link or scan the QR code to sign up so you can get texts from Autumn each day. And they're going to be based off of where you're at and what's going on in the program. That will be super helpful to keep you encouraged and keep you on track, as well as our group, our bod group that we're going to have. But definitely, I really encourage you to sign up on your start day, so on Monday, for those texts and to help keep on track. So that's just right there in that resource area, in that program guide on that second page or so. Okay, so now we are going to go into any questions, any of that kind of stuff. Does anybody else? Yeah, if you have a question, somebody else probably will have the question. So ask any questions that you possibly will have. I know a lot of people said that they would be watching the recording of this. So if you have any of those questions, feel free to reach out to your coach and just kind of discuss that. But I think we basically went over everything. So making sure that you're taking it in small doses over each day, ideally, so you have a chance to digest all of the information. And that way you're really prepared, because you want to go in and you want to do this well. We really want to feel how good our bodies are designed to feel. And unfortunately, our food system is crap nowadays, and like, again, same thing like Autumn had said, she was eating so healthy and everybody was like, oh, you're fine, you're great. And she's like, no, there's something that's wrong with me. And then finally she was diagnosed malnourished. So, a lot of times we can go undiagnosed or have a lot of issues that people kind of just, even I've heard of stories from people having anxiety and depression and that kind of stuff too, that's affected really truly from their gut health. And they're just told, oh, take this, do this, oh, it's just that or whatever. And it ended up being the root cause was their gut health. And they just had no idea until they finally did. And then, thankfully, when they know better, you do better, right? So, okay, I'm not seeing any questions. I'm going to stop the recording.